Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Scott McGee, and welcome to our live coronavirus pandemic special report. Tonight, we have a special guest, New York State Senator Shelley Mayer. And of course, we do want to hear from you, so feel free to post your questions on any of our News 12 social media platforms. But before we do talk to the senator and start taking your questions, we do want to mention something else, and that is that it is 7 p.m. News 12 would like to join the rest of the country by clapping because we care. This is our way of saying thank you to all of the essential workers out there, like thank you, Dr. Deepti Soni, attending physician at Montefiore Medical Center. Thank you to Frank A. Cable, a technician from New Rochelle. And thank you, Amanda A., an EMT from White Plains. Thank you to all of them. Now, are you a nurse, a doctor, a grocery store employee, restaurant worker, dry cleaning employee, bus driver, MTA employee, any other kind of essential worker? We want to hear from you. So send us those pictures of the essential workers in your lives. All we need is that picture, the person's name, the village or town, and what that person does for a living. And every night right here at 7, we'll be thanking those people who have been on the front lines during this coronavirus pandemic. And go to our News 12 Facebook and Twitter pages if you would like to nominate someone. Meanwhile, joining me now is someone else on the front lines of this. That's New York State Senator Shelley Mayer. Senator Mayer, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here, and we hope the technology will work well.
Yes, so far so good. We will venture and plow through this thing. All right, so we did talk about a month ago about the business owners in your district. They were really concerned about their future then. A month has gone by. I imagine it hasn't improved, but I want to know how they're doing now.
Well, I think it's an incredibly challenging time for business, particularly small business. In my community, which goes from the Bronx border along McLean Avenue in Yonkers all the way through Bedford and the whole Sound Shore and Eastchester, 3 cities, Yonkers, New Rochelle, and White Plains, that I share with the majority leader. So the small business community is just, I said one day it almost died, and it's quite heartbreaking. One of the more challenging things is the federal bill, the CARES Act, that Congress passed, and we're very appreciative, had this proposal, this money in it that was supposed to go to small business. And it did not go out the door in the right way, in my opinion. There were a lot of things that were not right about it. They are adopting more money put into it. Hopefully today that gets finalized. But I talked to so many people and businesses who tried to apply. They couldn't get the bank to take their application, or their application was not submitted. And by the time it was submitted, all the money was gone. So I'm very disappointed about that, but I'm committed to fighting for these small businesses. They're truly the backbone of all of our communities and the things that we love about Westchester. You go to Eastchester or Bronxville or Tuckahoe or uh, Armonk, all these communities. Of course, I live in Yonkers. It's full of small business. We need to have them survive this period. And if they got this PPP money, they could make payroll, they could pay their rent, they could pay their insurance, they could have some money to tide over while they abruptly lost all their income. So I'm happy there's more money in the pot. I'm going to continue to fight to make sure it goes to those in need and not to the big publicly traded companies. I do not think they should be eligible. I think it should go to the small and struggling businesses in all of our communities, and certainly in mine.
So, Senator, I want to drill down on that just a little bit because, of course, that money ran out very quickly. This new legislation that just passed has some more money in it. And, of course, this is a federal program, but we hear that this new program deals with some local banks. That may be something that you have a little more control over, a little more power to talk to. It's supposed to include some community banks and those types of things. Have you been talking to those banks about trying to get this money out to some of these smaller companies who simply were passed over that first round?
Well, what I've been doing is speaking to our members of Congress and their staff and our senators' staff to make sure they understand the real implications. I told them the story of somebody who went from bank to bank, small restaurant in Rochester that I spoke to in a group setting. I explained what you should do. He went to his bank. He went to 3 different branches. No one had the application. The application was online. He's, may not be savvy enough to do that. By the time he did it, there was no money left. So there needs to be sort of a second path, which Congress uh, put into the second bill, and I'm very pleased about that, with smaller community-based lenders that certainly provides money for women and minority businesses, so they shouldn't get shut out of the process. But it should not just be these big banks, which people feel, and I don't know if it's correct, that they're favoring their big customers. And so our job is put that aside. Let the money go to the small businesses in greatest need. It shouldn't be a favoritism system. It should be first in, should get it, and they should be rewarded, so to speak, with this money in order to simply survive. We want them up and running when the economy comes back.
Well, let's talk about something that the state does have a little more control over, and that is that we have gotten a ton of complaints from people still trying to file for unemployment. On
Right.
April 9th, the system changed so that people would get this call back from a specialist that was supposed to be 72 hours. We've had people say they've been waiting a week or two. What is the holdup, and when will that problem be fixed?
Well, there's actually two kinds of unemployment insurance, and I think it's important to distinguish. I believe you're talking about traditional unemployment that New York offered, although some things have changed. The waiting period has been waived. You're going to get that extra $600 as a result of the federal. That is for people who are employees. They have a W-2. It's easy to get into the system. Frankly, the Department of Labor, in ramping this up, given the volume, was just not prepared quickly enough, and it took them a while to get it in shape. It's better. It's not fixed. I talked to the commissioner last week. I expressed to her my concern about that. I'm hopeful that for traditional unemployment, we are doing better. I would say that I gave a list of over 70 individuals yesterday to the governor's office that I've been trying to help for the last few weeks who are waiting for that call back. But the other portion, Scott, is this pandemic unemployment assistance program that was created in the last federal stimulus. That is for people who are self-employed, gig economy, musicians, artists, people that work in the theater industry. Certainly, we have a lot of them in Westchester, people who have their own business. Those people were to be given unemployment insurance under this new system. Unfortunately, the federal government, and I don't mean Congress, I mean the president's administration, was slow to issue guidance until April 5th. It required the state to actually have a contract in order to do this. So people are so frustrated. They filed, waiting, they don't understand the delay. I'm hopeful that quite shortly, this problem will be addressed operationally and the money will go out the door. I spoke to a guy tonight about it. I've expressed to the governor's office and Commissioner of Labor my great frustration. They understand. I'm hopeful that we are turning the corner into a faster system. Frankly, yes, there was huge volume, greater than anyone expected, but also the system did not work well enough, and they did not change the operations to meet the need quickly enough. I'm hopeful we're past that and things will improve.
Well, we continue to hear that they're working out of a system that may be like 4 decades old. I mean, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Is this going to be part of this new budget? Of course, we'll get into the budget here in a minute, but you know, this is obviously something that needs to be updated if we're still working with a system that's that old.
Oh, I totally agree, Scott. You know, we have systems in state government that need to be changed and to come along. We don't have direct deposit in agencies. We don't have the ability to forward checks by email. We still have to go and fax something. You know, frankly, fax, in my opinion, is of the last century. So we absolutely need to upgrade the technology of the state. This was a lesson learned that over time, you have to invest in the infrastructure of government because we need government right now to help us through this time, and our systems need to be good. Now, I will say they are working very hard. They brought 1,000 people to the Department of Labor. They are investing in it, and I'm hopeful we've turned the corner.
I'm sure a lot of people are joining you in that hope as well. Now, let's kind of
I'm
switch
sure they
gears
are.
just a little
And
bit.
can I just say,
Sure.
Scott, I just want to add something. You know, you got to take seriously that someone is 4 weeks without any money. That's not something, yes, they're going to get the money back to their date of application. But in the interim, like you said, they're waiting without any income and they're feeding their kids. They're paying their rent if they have to do that. They maybe have to put gas in their car to go to the grocery store. So this is a real serious issue. We've had people crying on the phone to us. And I've told my staff, we're going to do the very best we can. We've made it our business to try to call back every one of these people to do everything we can within our power to push their application along.
I imagine it is just a real struggle to get this done, but the need is great because the problem is great at this point. I tell you what,
Right.
State Senator Mayer, let us take a quick break right now, but we'll come back with more questions for the senator. We'll be right back.
This News 12 special report is brought to you by Montefiore Einstein. Our governor has asked us all to join the fight against COVID-19. Sticking together and staying home flattens the curve to save lives.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching our special on coronavirus. I am joined tonight by State Senator Shelley Mayer. Senator Mayer, thank you for joining us once again. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about reopening. Where do you stand? What metrics are you looking for before you feel comfortable reopening? And specifically, where are we on testing?
Well, one, I want to give credit to the governor. I mean, he really has exhibited extraordinary leadership during this period. Every day I watch him, like millions of other Americans, I suspect, or thousands, because he gives us the science, he explains it clearly, he talks with empathy about the actual experiences of people. So I have great faith in the analysis that his office is going to use in deciding the timeliness of opening and the process of. And I think, they're going to move to much greater testing, uh, antibody testing to determine how widespread the virus is. And he talked about that today, and I hope there'll be details coming out. I think that makes a lot of sense. We don't really know how many people have had it and didn't exhibit symptoms, or people who have had it and are well now, or sure. So I think the antibody testing is a very effective approach, but I really want to commend the governor's leadership and also recognizing, this is Westchester. We were in the epicenter, beginning in New Rochelle, in the northern side of New Rochelle, and then Westchester's been hit tremendously hard. Things are improving. I feel terribly about the number of cases in Yonkers, which has so many, but it is by far the biggest city. And I think one thing I have noticed, credit to the people in our community, they are taking social distancing very seriously. When I go to the supermarket, stand in line, go out and meet first responders, I am so impressed. So I think it's not where I stand. It's not a matter of opinion. I'm going to defer to science and the experts, but I also recognize that if we open too soon, one, I believe as a parent and a grandparent, we are concerned that we want to feel confident that the place we send our children and grandchildren is safe, whether it's school or we go to work or we get on a bus or a subway or a train, or we go shopping. We need a degree of confidence that we have safe places to go and places that are not going to pose undue risk. So I have confidence in the governor's judgment on the reopening. I appreciate his saying that it's not about politics, and sort of politics is not the issue of the day. What do we need to be safe and to ensure that we do not have a loss of life? Your heart has to break every day when you hear these numbers of the number of New Yorkers who have passed away. This has been a tragedy of incredible proportion. And so we have to respond appropriately and slowly, thoughtfully, scientifically. And if it takes an extra few days before I get to go to a hairdresser or get my nails done, me and thousands of others, so be it. It's worth it if in the end we are saving a life.
I'm with you. I would love to get a haircut at some point.
Me too.
It's been a really long time. But my question to you is what do you have to see before you're comfortable going into a hair salon or sitting down at a restaurant again?
Well, I think when we are confident that the increase in the number of infections is at a low point on a consistent basis. I mean, we still have, I think, 2,000 people, I didn't hear today's number, coming into hospital with serious cases of COVID. And we have to wait till that comes down significantly, till we have the analysis of testing. And of course, I would like to see more testing across the board in our communities. People still want to be tested and know with confidence whether they have the virus. So I am not one who's going to make my own opinion as a person who's not a scientist, not a doctor, on when we should open. I think we should open when the risk to public safety is as minimal as it can be, recognizing that our economy needs to come back, and it will come back. I have great confidence that our economy here in Westchester and throughout the New York State and the downstate region will come back. This is going to take its toll, but we will come back strong.
I do have a question from Facebook. James asks, for Medicaid recipients that have to pay a spend down, could the spend down be eliminated during the virus without losing coverage?
Well, it's a very good question, James. Under the budget, first place, the legislature gave the governor extraordinary power, which we see him exercising, as we saw the coronavirus was coming. And I think that people had questions about that, but he needed to have the power to change laws and suspend laws even when the legislature was not there in session, although we were in session, as you know, Scott, until the budget. And I hope we go back. I think we will. That spend down requirement would have to be suspended by the governor during this time. He is suspending certain laws that have a disproportionate impact during the coronavirus. Whether that one would be suspended by him, I do not know. It's something that we can raise with the governor's staff if there's a compelling reason to do so. But he does have the power to change laws unilaterally for some period of time. And I would add, he does have the power, we don't talk about it yet, to cut expenditures in the budget unless we go back and find another way to find the savings.
Okay, so with that in mind, what about the budget? What are we going to cut knowing that revenues are just going to be way, way down?
Well, first I want to say, in the most difficult of times, you and I met in Albany, when the coronavirus was just really beginning to rear its head, we adopted a balanced budget on time. Now, it wasn't what I would have wanted. I'm the chair of education. I spent a year fighting for more money for our schools. I believe they're owed it. I believe they need it, and I believe they deserve it. That being said, what we were able to do was adopt a budget where schools were not cut below the level they received last year because we got federal money in that stimulus bill. Without that stimulus bill, schools would have been cut already. So, and we did cut other areas, which I'm very unhappy about. We cut in some of Medicaid, we cut in some of healthcare, we cut in so many things that we need to invest in, but we had no choice given the economy and the projected $10 billion deficit that the governor's office thought we would have this coming fiscal year. Now, if the amount of state revenues is below anticipated as of the end of April, the governor has the authority to cut additionally, and he's spoken about
All right, Senator, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but I tell you what, I'll let you finish your thought in just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Welcome back to our special on the coronavirus. We are talking to State Senator Shelley Mayer tonight. Senator Mayer, we were talking about the budget. We were trying to protect the education part of it, but this is you're trying to catch a falling knife at this point. How do you deal with that when you really don't even know how much money you're going to have?
In the next stimulus. This is incredibly important. The governor's right about this. The state needs money to avoid these cuts, and the state is experiencing a huge revenue, maybe bigger than billion, because people are going to pay taxes later because of the delay, authorized delay. So what are we going to do? We're going to fight for more federal money for the state, for our cities, towns, and villages, whether it's Rye or Mamaroneck, every part of my district. I have been on the phone for that. And I'm also fighting directly for education aid, more education aid, as I mentioned earlier, that helped us avoid cuts before. Our schools have picked up a Herculean task of doing the distance learning. It's a work in progress. It's not perfect. But so many of our teachers and staff and administrators and parents have jumped in to do the best they can. I mean, we weren't trained to be teachers, us parents. But we are, people are learning and doing the best they can. And yet we have inequity in the system. Everybody does technology. So we are going to need additional funds besides what schools already needed. So I'm fighting for federal money for all those things. And obviously, I'm hopeful that our revenues do not dip so much that the governor feels obliged to cut. And even if he
All right.
does,
Thank you,
legislature
Senator.
can cover.
We'll be right back, everybody.